Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hey, listen, I had some issues. I did this video before and I had some issues. Apparently, I was watching it and the sound was just terrible. And it was user error. Like, it was so stupid. Essentially, I thought I was talking in the mic that's in front of me. And actually, I was talking, the mic that's behind me was actually picking up my voice. And so I was wondering, like, why is this thing so terrible? I ran a bunch of tests and figured out it was something stupid. Again, I had the wrong microphone selected. So hopefully, this sounds way better this second time around. So shout out to Adam as well as Robert Stewart for coming on to the stream earlier. I don't know if they're going to check back in on this one, but I appreciate them jumping into the chat in the last stream. So hopefully, I'll see some people. If not, I'll look forward uh, to hearing or seeing your comments, your questions about what we're posting or what I'm posting up today. Want to welcome everybody to the brand new studio. So this is going to be simultaneously my wife's as well as my streaming studio as well. So I really designed this for her so she can do her work from home as well as some of her music and things of that nature. You can peep the guitar in the back right there. That's hers. Microphone, some of the sound stuff. And also sometimes when I'm doing streaming, so I stream Bible study with my church. With not that I don't pastor the church, but I help out with teaching. So sometimes I teach Bible study from here, and obviously doing some of these YouTube videos for with military topics. I haven't done one in a really long time. As I explained before, time and just life is really taking a lot of time away. So really don't have too much time to dedicate to it all the time. However, today I was like, you know what? I keep getting the questions about why did I join at 34, 35. In fact, I think somebody today actually put in the comments of one of my videos and asked why did I join at 30. I did make a video about it once before. It's been probably about 4 years ago now. At this point, 4 or 5 years ago, at this point that I made it. So I want to redo it and just kind of talk about what was happening, what my thought process was, and hopefully, it'll be beneficial and helpful to those who are watching it. So without further ado, we're going to talk about why I joined the military after 30. So for those who don't know, I joined the Army National Guard at age 34. So I enlisted at age 34. At the time, talking this over with my wife, she was not very enthused. But I really had a plan once I decided that that was what I was going to do. That at least that's what I wanted to do. Um, and so I just kind of felt like this was the way I needed to go in order to kind of accomplish some of the things that I wanted to accomplish financially and career wise and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up joining the Army through the Maryland National Guard. I'll just kind of go through just kind of a short history. So reason number one is I didn't really know what I wanted to do at 17 years old. At 17, normally when you see that, that's normally the reason why people give that that they joined the military because they didn't know what else they wanted to do. Maybe they didn't want to go to college. Maybe they didn't really have any job prospects back home. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there just wasn't anything happening back home, and so they joined the military. So for me, it was a little bit different. Like I didn't really have any direction as far as what I wanted to do. I didn't really have that mindset of, hey, I want to be this when I grow up, and this is the path that I'm going to take to get to it. I was really just kind of living life day by day, minute by minute. In high school, my whole goal was just to graduate high school. After high school, I had no idea, no idea. I ended up having a mentor my senior year, and that mentor really kind of helped guide me towards college. So I ended up just going to college, mainly because that was the expectation. Like everyone was kind of pushing me towards college. So I ended up going to college. I did have a conversation with the Marine recruiter on the telephone when I was 17, but I wasn't, I didn't really, I had heard some information about Marines and the Army in general. That turned out not to be true, but it influenced my decision at the time. So I essentially told Marines, no, and I didn't even give any thought to anyone else. It's weird because my stepfather was in the Coast Guard, so maybe I could have thought about going Coast Guard at that time, but it just really wasn't in my it really wasn't in my mind to do. So I didn't do that, and I ended up going to Bowie State University in Maryland. While I was there, I started out as a computer science major. The reason or the rationale is my mom was saying, "Hey, you're always on the computer. You love computers. You like being on the computer. You should go into computer science." My mom was thinking more, of salary wise. So she wanted me to go into computer science because obviously that's where the money was. That's where the money is even today. And she knew that back then, and so she really wanted me to go into computer science. So I did. Once I went into computer science, I realized very quickly. In fact, it was probably one of my first courses in the computer science program was C plus language or C plus plus. I learned that I really don't care or like. I really didn't the behind the scenes networking, no ones and zeros of computers really didn't interest me. I was more interested in using them for what those ones and zeros could do. I really didn't care about what the ones and zeros and all that extra stuff. So I switched my major, went from computer science to computer tech, which is essentially like computer networking. So I became a networking major, thinking that okay, maybe I don't have to be so in the weeds with it. I can just focus on just having making computers talk to each other. Realized I didn't like that either, because I still had to go through C plus plus, and I was like, I don't really want to do that. And so eventually I was able to switch my major, or I decided to switch my major over from computer tech over to English. When I got to English, I was like, oh man, okay, I have found something that I really enjoy. Like I love reading. I love writing. At the time, I was writing some poetry as well. I was becoming a regular poetry writer. And I was surrounded by other individuals who love reading, who love writing, who love expressing their opinion about what they were reading. I love interpreting what they were reading, and love writing poetry also. So I was like, oh, this is it. So reason number two is that I thought I figured things out in college. Again, I knew people in college who were in ROTC and stuff like that. But to me, I felt like, okay, I've figured it out here. This is what I want to do. I really wanted to be a journalist. I am a avid reader of the Washington Post. Have been really since high school. And so I always wanted to be a newspaper journalist, specifically covering sports. That's what I saw for myself. Unfortunately for me, the print media started really drying up by the time I got to college. So once I got to like my junior year in college, and I was kind of looking around for different internships, a lot of the small local newspapers had stopped bringing on interns. They were, kind of bracing the shutdown. Even the big one, Washington Post at the time, they had very limited internship positions because they were kind of navigating this new environment where people weren't buying paper newspapers, but they were turning more towards internet style or internet site. So, Washington Post is one of the first ones to kind of go in that direction. But because of that, they weren't really looking to invest in interns who wanted to become columnists one day. They were looking more for people who were doing blogs or people who were doing little short. I forgot the technical term, but essentially, no, just kind of short pages or short sections in the newspaper, but on the internet. And I had no idea about that world. So, so I looked around. I'm like, okay, well, I can't be what I wanted to be. Like I said, I couldn't be the journalist. So I ended up settling on teaching. I always worked with students or always worked with young people. When I was younger and we had family who would come over, my mom would always send the younger cousins to me for me to watch them. Um, and I never had a problem with that. My first job was working with Maryland Park and Planning, so I was always around younger people and being responsible for them. So that was never an issue for me. So I figured, you know what, I can. I like working with young people. I can go into teaching, and that gives me a stable job, a stable income, and everything should be fine. And so that's what I did. I finished Bowie State University, got my degree, got my teacher certification, and then went on to teach in Maryland. And honestly, I really thought that I would enjoy teaching more. Uh, I really thought that, reason three, I would enjoy it more because I always enjoyed working with young people. And I figure like, this kind of is in my wheelhouse. There's really no, I'm not a person who's uncomfortable in this environment. And I quickly learned, like when I say quickly, I mean before I even became a real teacher, I was still doing my internship. And I realized then that I didn't really want to teach for a living. It had nothing to do with the students. Like students are, kids are gonna be kids. So I'm used to it. Um, attitudes didn't really bother me. I knew how to deal with that. I really enjoyed talking with them. I really enjoyed building the relationships with them. I really enjoyed the mentor role that it afforded me. I enjoyed teaching them how to look at life and teaching them how to make decisions that would benefit them in life. I had loved that part of it. But it was the other stuff that I just wasn't interested in. The constant lesson planning and the amount of papers to grade. I was teaching when I was doing my internship. I think I had like maybe four classes in middle school, and in each class, you're talking about 30 plus kids. So anywhere between 120 to 130 kids, which meant as a language arts teacher, that's 130 something papers that you're grading every day. The just kind of the consistent changes in standards and requirements that were put on teachers. Every year it seemed like more responsibility was dumped on teachers, um, without any extra pay, without any extra time to do it. Every year it seemed like the board was finding ways of dumping responsibility on the teachers, and I just didn't like that. I didn't. Yeah, it was. I really didn't like the confinement of curriculum. Like now, mind you, the curriculum was necessary because you need to teach the students up to standard, but sometimes it can be pretty restricting. And the timelines that you had to teach certain subjects and move on to other subjects was kind of restricting as well. So I just thought I would like it more, and I realized that I didn't. Not only that, but I also thought that maybe I could find my way in another form of in administration. So maybe through, education. So maybe through administration. But I looked at what principals were doing, and it was a lot of paperwork, and there were a lot of meetings with the parents, the community, the school board, or the area board. And as a principal, your job is really dependent on all the teachers and really every all the personnel in the building doing their job at a high level. If they don't do their job at a high level, then you can lose your job. I didn't like that. I didn't like that sense of instability. I thought about guidance counseling. Just in theory, that sounded more like my wheelhouse, where I could help students really kind of plan out the next step in life, whether it's from middle school to high school, or from high school to college, or out or other facets of life. But every time I looked at guidance counselors, most of their time was dedicated to either making schedules, changing schedules, doing parent teacher conferences. And I know it's not every guidance counselor, but that was from the guidance counselors that I was associated with. That's what it really became. And I didn't want to do that. And I thought about speech pathology, but then that was another degree and more money that I didn't have, or I wasn't disciplined enough to save. And so I just really didn't see the next step for me in education. And it really got to a point where I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, but it can't be just in the classroom for my whole life. Later on, though, I ended up getting married. My wife was also a teacher, and no, we had a child a year and a half later, and that's when reason number four kind of hit me. Reason number four is salary, bills, and life. When I was single, I was making the money that I was making, and it was fine because the rent that I was paying at the time wasn't much, and I was single. I could really do what I wanted to do with my money. Um, the only person that was affected by it was me. Once I got married, though, then things changed because now I couldn't just spend money whenever I wanted to because we had bills we had to pay, right? We had rent, we had our utilities, you have gas and car upkeep. You have all these other things that you have to take into consideration, and you have to take it into consideration with somebody else. So no, we had no my I started looking at how much I was making, how much my wife was making, and we live in the DC metropolitan area, which is one of the most expensive areas in the entire country. I think it's behind San Francisco and New York City, if I'm not mistaken. I think the DC metropolitan area is like number three or number four as far as most expensive areas in the country. And so I'm looking at the rising cost of living, and our paychecks are kind of standing still. And I was like, man, this is really not working. And then we had our child, we had our daughter a year and a half later. And then that added even more expenses. So they had to pay for daycare. And daycare was wildly expensive. And the diapers were crazy expensive. The formula, all that stuff, clothing, all of it was just, it looked just in my mind, it was just piling up. Bills that we already had from our rent, bills we already had from our apartment, and now we have the expenses of taking care of a baby. Like it was all just really, really expensive. Um, and so I started looking at this like this is not sustainable. At least it's not sustainable in the way that I want to take care of my family. This is not really what I envisioned for my family. So I started looking elsewhere. On top of that, so in teaching, you have a teacher certification, but it's only good for like 5 years. By the end of the 5 years, you need continuing education in order to renew that certification. So I renewed it for one time before, but I knew that my time was coming up to renew it again. And I just didn't see it happening. I didn't see it happening. And so I started looking really for a career change, which brings us to my last reason number five. I started looking around and thinking like, man, I'm 34 or 33, I think, when I first started looking at this. I was like, I'm 33. And if I don't make it a change now, I will never be able to make a change. And I will just be stuck doing something that I'm not really enjoying. Again, it had nothing to do with the students. I enjoyed my students. I love my students. I think any teacher will tell you that when it comes to students, that most of your students are fine. It's no, it's always like a handful who like to just kind of raise Cain. But for the most part, most of the students are fine. Like I said, so the students weren't really the issue for me. And so I realized I was like, I'm either going to I'm either going to make this change now, or make a change, or I'm just going to be stuck here. So I started kind of Googling and trying to think about what else could I do. And while I was thinking, for whatever reason, the Army National Guard came to mind. I was like, oh, wait, I could go and maybe get a skill that is good for the Army and also translates in the civilian world. Number two, no, since I was a kid, like so my favorite movie as a kid was Top Gun, and I really wanted to be a fighter pilot. So I always kind of had a sense of military duty, wanting to serve in the military in some capacity. And as I got older, no, my the information that I got about the military also became clearer. So I didn't really have those those barriers that I had early on in my life. And like I said before, my stepfather was in the Coast Guard, so we frequented Air Force bases, Army bases. So I was quite, I was quite familiar with that, with the life and just kind of being around. And so I kind of looked at it as being the best of both worlds. I could kind of fulfill that desire to serve in the military. And at the very same time, I could also use this as a way to get training for something else. My wife was in grad school at the time, or had started grad school. And so she was pursuing her master's. We couldn't afford for both me and her to pursue the master's. We just didn't have that type of money. And so I figured that this was a good way for her to pursue her master's, and then for me to go and get this new education that wouldn't cost me anything. So I talked to a recruiter, got some information, came home to my wife and said, "Hey, listen, I'm thinking about joining the Army National Guard." She was like, "What? First of all, why?" I mean, obviously the age thing, but secondly, that means you got to go away. Like I was like, "Yeah, I would have to go away for basic training at AIT." And that would be for a while. And she was like, "No, no, no, no." She wasn't feeling it at all. From her perspective, she was in grad school, working full time, and then would have to take care of Melody by herself. She was not interested in that prospect. But for me, it was more of I just had this vision like, hey, I can take this, I can go this route, and this is going to be like it's going to suck in the beginning. Yeah, it's going to suck in the initial. stages of this, but when it's all said and done, this is going to be beneficial for the family. And I just kind of kept going in that, kept pounding that message. Again, my wife was not very happy about it, but she eventually kind of relented reluctantly, reluctantly, and kind of let me do it. And so after talking to the recruiter again and decide and kind of figuring out what we were going to do, because I went there with one option in mind, or at least with one idea in mind, and that was just not an idea. So I wanted to be an architect. I was like, oh, maybe I can go and learn how to be an architect with the army, and the army doesn't have architects, at least not in that way, not in the way that I was looking at it. But he did point me into a good direction, and so I went from I decided, okay, cool, this is going to be the moves that I'm going to make, and I decided to join the army. I enlisted. I think I was 34 when I enlisted, actually. So 34 when I enlisted. um, and I can tell you that it's really been the best decision professionally that I've ever made. There were definitely some tough times family wise. We can go. I can do a whole another video on that. Um, I wanted to enlist at 31. I thought that would be a good time for me to go because she wouldn't really remember it. As life being what it is, it took me about another year before I actually enlisted. So I was like 34 when I enlisted. She was 2 years old at that time, and she was just old enough to know what was happening, or at least to realize what was happening. She could have been three, actually, when I think about that. Let me take that back. She was about three. So she was just old enough to kind of be cognizant of what was going on. And so, like in my time away at basic training and at AIT, she had a little bit of a tough time. And my wife also had a little bit of a tough time. So we had to kind of, my wife, to her credit, navigated that very well. And then later on, we were able to, join each other again out in Arizona. But I say this to anybody who's 30 years old, because I get a lot of comments. Most of my YouTube subscribers and people who watch my videos are 30 plus. Um, you have to make sure that you take your situation under consideration. This worked out for me, and it worked out really better than I planned it, and much quicker than I planned it to work out. That doesn't mean that it's going to work out the same way for you, but you really do have to take your situation into consideration. Are you satisfied with where you are? Do you see yourself moving forward in the industry that you're working in? Do you have the support of your spouse if you're married? Are you able to verbalize how a move like this will be beneficial? Do you even know that a move like this will be beneficial to your family? Sometimes these moves, sometimes joining the military is not, you know, great on the marriage. So it's all about, having that communication with the spouse, you guys being on the same page, you laying out the vision uh effectively, and then being able to stick to that. Um, and then once you've made your decision, whether it's to join the military or to not join the military, go in and do the best that you can. I did a lot of struggling. I struggled through parts of AIT. I made a video on that as well. I struggled through parts of AIT. I struggled with the culture of the army, especially well, let me rephrase that. I struggled with the training culture of the army because I was grown, and the training culture of the army is really geared towards 18 to 21-year olds, and I'm 34. So struggled a lot with that. But after I made it through, I can honestly say it was the best decision that I've made professionally. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it again. With that being said, I'm not going to keep everybody. I hope that everyone is staying safe in this COVID time. Again, we're not done with it. I know people have really strong feelings about it. I do too. And we're not done with COVID. So let's do what we can do to make sure you stay safe, your family is staying safe, your friends are staying safe. And I wish everyone the best of luck. Adam was on earlier in one of my earlier streams. Once again, Adam, I want to again just encourage you and wish you the best of luck in your quest to enlist in the military. Good luck on the ASVAB. Robert Stewart, it was good seeing you again on my earlier stream. Um, Look me up on Facebook. so we can reconnect if we're not already on there. To everybody else, I hope that you also had great holidays. I hope that you enjoyed family. I hope you had, got everything that you wanted to, and I'm hoping that everyone has a great New Year as well. Um, because again, you know, if this time has taught us anything, 2020 and 2021, it has taught me that family, friends, your loved ones are so much more important than work, so much more important than other things that we've kind of learned to put in front of them. So hopefully, you guys are doing what you guys will continue to do well, and I look forward to seeing you guys another time when I make another video. All right, take care. Hit me up in the chat. Drop your comments, questions, comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I forgot to say that in the beginning. It's been a long time, like I said. But don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys on the other side.